Welcome to the PixelBeast podcast, a podcast for, about, and with the PixelBeast community. I'm your host, Nate Siggard. There are 10,000 PixelBeast NFTs minted on the Ethereum blockchain. PixelBeast owners can access Beastopia, an ever-evolving experience including events, games, and more, alongside VCs, founders, devs, NFT enthusiasts, going down the Web3 rabbit hole together. Today, I'm joined by PixelBeast visionary, artist, and founder Yohei Nakajima. Yohei is a general partner at Untapped Capital, investing in early-stage companies and unexpected founders. His background in emergent technologies, entertainment, and gaming, as well as his transparency while creating PixelBeasts, has attracted a vibrant community who are excited to build Beastopia together. Welcome, Yohei.
Thank you, Nate.
It's great to be here with you. I've been looking forward to this for the last few weeks now since PixelBeast has launched, and how's it been for you since it's launched? You've been a really busy man. I know you've got a lot going on.
It has been busy. Completely honest, did not expect how busy I would be, but it's been incredible. I started PixelBeast because I wanted to learn about Web3, and I'm absolutely learning, and the things I'm learning are not what I thought I'd learn. And really, it's I think the power of community, right? And just the amazing things happening, which you've seen as well.
So one of the things that's really common to hear people say in the community is that a week in Beastopia is like a month in real life. And so my first question really is like, how have you managed to stay grounded and focused with so much energy behind the project?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, right after we launched, there was a period I kind of fell off my regular kind of schedule, and it was a little stressful, but about a weekend, I got it back kind of going where I was. And I have a pretty strict kind of work-life balance. I work from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, and then I stop working, and then I hang out with my family until the kids go to bed, and then I'll do work afterwards. And then I don't really do work on the weekends, except for, again, after the kids go to sleep. So, that definitely, having a set schedule like that keeps me, I'd say, grounded.
So a lot of projects have like a team or other people behind it. So far, PixelBeast has largely been you, not only creating PixelBeasts, but prior to creating PixelBeast, you created a couple of Tango projects using Web3 and wallets, and starting to dabble into some of the technology aspects of NFTs and blockchain technology. How do you see having more of a team join you and being involved, like helping you to scale what you're building?
Yeah, I mean, the reason there isn't really a team was because it started on a whim, right? I thought, hey, I can do some art, I can draw some code, I can build some utility. I should play around with this NFT stuff is how it started. And in the process of building out and sharing these tools, I got a lot of support. Both people I brought on board to help with the launch and also just part of the community, which really accelerated a lot of things. As far as a team, one of the things that I've been looking into closely is how do we manage how does participation work in Web3? Like, is the community that exists today the team? Is it a free-flowing team of people jumping in and out? And is there a way to leverage tokens and compensate people? And is it possible to build a community-run company? It's a big exploration that I'm interested in. And and on the development side too, right? I think my goal with building Tango was not. I didn't think Tango was a tool that would I didn't build it sustainably, right? I hacked it together in 2 nights. But my goal was, hey, if I can quickly build something that's cool, it might inspire people to build cooler things. And that was always part of the plan. And I'm seeing the same thing happen in the PixelBeast ecosystem with even let's say specifically at gaming. There's at least 2 people that I know of that are building games that PixelBeast will be able to play. That and they only started building it because they saw kind of the ground, kind of the active community and the excitement around the PixelBeast community, and that motivated them to build stuff. So again, that was kind of a roundabout question on what the team is. I guess I'm unsure.
Well, we'll get back to gaming in a second, but so right now, PixelBeast community we have weekly Beast Ups every Wednesday going on in Beastopia, where you can actually walk around and engage with other community members with video chat. We're also hosting Friday morning co-working, and I'm mind you, these times are U.S. specific right now. We're working on expanding that to being more international, as there are members in all over the world, in Australia, China, New Zealand, Philippines. I think we've seen a bunch of people coming from all over. So as we expand the community, those offerings will expand too. But what events would you like to see happen more in the future?
It's a good question. I mean, the reason that these events exist is really to bring the community together, right? I love weekly events because I've experienced over and over again that if you attend the same weekly event just many times, then you become friends with the people who also attend the weekly event. And I've just seen that happen in my life. It's been true for churches, for bowling. Like if there's a weekly event, it brings people together. So that's the reason these weekly events exist. As I think about future events, I think I'm interested in doing more events that attract the kind of people we've been really excited to have in the community. So I think the idea of doing things like a demo day or office hours where we can connect people interested in learning about Web3 with mentors in the PixelBeasts community. Those are things that excite me. I had another idea. I forgot what it was. But yeah, I'd love to see events for the purpose of attracting, more devs, more founders, more builders into the PixelBeasts community, and also more events that bring us closer. So it'd be fun to do, mini game night, those kind of things.
So you mentioned that there were some new contributions coming in from the community. Some of those were gaming tools. There was another one that was just released by a community member named Alex, which is a GM Beast creator where you can actually add a GM pixel message on top of your PixelBeast. What are some of the other contributions and participation from the community that you've seen that you think is really cool, and what would you like to see more of?
I mean, one, I think your animated rigs are probably one of my favorites by far, no question. They're so hilarious. I can't wait to have more of us have that.
And a lot of fun, too.
They're a lot of fun. So yeah, the animated rigs are incredible. I don't know if you remember, but I think it was Kyle who built the kind of a lore tracker. So you could go in and you could write the backstory of your PixelBeast, and it was a little app that he created. I think that was Kyle. And then there's somebody else was building some game mock-ups in the chat that they were sharing. The GM BC builder is a fun one. I don't want to share too much about the other games because I'm pretty games aren't quick to build. But I saw a mock-up for a game where people can walk around with their PixelBeast the other day by a developer in the community who wanted to show me where he was at.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting, and I think this is when I saw Loot launch, I was inspired to add a lot of attributes. So a lot of the kind of speed, strength, best friend, that kind of stuff, the invisible attributes were added after I saw the Loot project, and my hope was that the attributes would inspire people to build on top of the PixelBeast, and that's exactly what I'm seeing, which is exciting.
So I guess since we're on the topic of gaming, it's hard to avoid the topic. I think it's probably one of the most thing that people are most interested in with PixelBeast. Is there any news about like an official game or any kind of develop that's going on? I know you've kind of hinted at things and said that there's stuff in the works, and maybe it's a little early to get into that. But is there anything you could tell us about that?
I'm not ready to announce anything on the specific game, aside from there are many pieces to it that are being worked on.
That's awesome. So, and I totally understand it. I think better to wait to announce things than to overpromise and underdeliver, right? So
yeah, with the game, I've seen games being built at Disney and Nintendo. By no means would I want something to take that long, but I also know that building, if I'm building, the official game, I want something to last long, which means I don't want to rush it quickly. So you will hear things as I'm ready, and it'll be exciting.
So another area of interest within the PixelBeast community is an investment DAO, an accelerator, ways for community members to get involved into the bigger Web3 ecosystem, also building out other types of products. And that's something that there's been a lot of discussion on in our member Discord. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you see the future of the investment DAO and the accelerator working?
So, because we're talking about a lot of things, maybe I'll step back quickly and separate out kind of the PixelBeast experience into three things. One is kind of the initial onboarding, and I think that's the chat app, calendar, Tango, weekly beast up. It's like, hey, let's build a community. Let's get to know each other quickly. 2 is this kind of idea of like a game, which I think actually kind of stands on its own, because at least the one that I'm building. And then the 3 is our explorations, right? Which is what you just talked on, which is, the purpose of doing PixelBeast in the first place, and the goal of PixelBeast is to explore and learn about Web3 together. And as I've watched kind of the tooling space grow, there's a couple of pieces that really stood out to me, and those are really what's driving the exploration. So with the investment DAO, we're looking at investment DAO tools. Essentially what they are as of today, are essentially friend groups coming together and investing in startups. Initially, I thought it'd be just fun to do that as PixelBeast community. As I'm looking into it, I'm finding out that there's some challenges around the accredited investor rule. So what it might end up looking like, and again, this is not official by any means, but I'm just transparently sharing where we are in our learning process, is it would likely look like accredited investors within the PixelBeast community coming together and essentially running an investment club, which unfortunately doesn't make it super open to everybody, except unlike a traditional investment club, we can make the conversations and discussions and sourcing available to anybody in the PixelBeast community. So that the PixelBeast community members who aren't accredited can source deals, they can chime in, provide feedback. They just can't officially invest and be an LP in the fund due to security rules. It's kind of where we're at. And I'm looking to see if there are mechanics where I can pass on upside from that fund, kind of wholesale in, like kind of largely into the PixelBeast community without turning that into, and then figuring out the distribution. That's a little bit more of a separate mechanic.
It seems like there's a lot of people working on this at the same time right now. I mean, like if every day there are like complete new developments happening online. Twitter's almost a nonstop stream of thousands of people all trying to solve this problem together. So it's no wonder that we're also right in the middle of trying to figure that out. And it's awesome to hear that not only are we early on the process, but actually we're right in the middle of being involved in it. So it's great to hear that that's one of the core things that you're working on. Also, having to do with, the game and derivative works. How do you see Beast Co. is actually going to be the owner of the PixelBeast project, correct? And like, how do you see that working with, derivative works and intellectual property? Is there going to be some kind of like open source license to use the PixelBeasts for the owners, or, future products that are released by Beast Co. as, internally created derivative projects? How do you see that working out?
So with all of this, I have an idea of what makes sense, and one of the things I'm working with on the community is figuring out like how much do I want to propose things, but also want to have the community have say. So we'll eventually figure out what the right balance is and how to slowly decentralize these decisions. But my kind of excitement around Beast Co. Was this idea of an experiment of doing something between what Larva Labs did with CryptoPunks and what Bored Apes did. With Larva Labs, all of the CryptoPunks IP is under one umbrella. And I think there's a lot of power in that, right? Because they could take the CryptoPunks, and the collection could sign with CAA.
Totally.
Right? And they're only able to do that because it was one umbrella. They can do a show and use every CryptoPunks. They can do a game and use every CryptoPunks. And Larva Labs has control of that IP. With Bored Apes, they gave each individual ape owner the IP right to their own ape. But they don't have the right to the Bored Ape brand. So they can build their own derivatives. They can name their Bored Ape, but they can't. For example, I think Arizona IST bought a Bored Ape and put it on, but they were slapped on the wrist for using the word Bored Ape on it. So they could use the picture, but they couldn't use the term Bored Ape. And also what I've noticed in the Bored Ape community, which I think is, by the way, great. There's nothing against. I think that was the most amazing experiment. But I've noticed that a lot of people are kind of buying an ape to build their own business. And there are some collaboration piecemeal, but in general, it's pretty much like, I'm going to promote my own ape. I'm going to do something cool with my ape. Other people benefit in general, but there's not as much collaboration as I thought I might see. So I'm interested in this idea of housing all the IP under one umbrella, but letting the community control it. So my theory is something like, if somebody came and said, hey, I want to do a TV show, that proposal is submitted to somewhere. And the community, which means people who own a PixelBeast, can then vote to let that person use that copyright and how much royalty they want to charge, if so. And if a community member says, I want to do a children's book, I don't want to pay any royalty, and the community says, great, go for it, then that person has the right to do it. But if somebody says, I want to do a children's book, it's going to be about something horrible, the community could say, no, we don't approve that. Or if the community says this process is too daunting, we should just give every every holder the right to their own IP, then the community can vote on it and make that happen. If the community says, you know what, we should just open source all of it so nobody needs permission ever for using any of it, the community can do that. But to start, I think I want to make it protected, make it so that people can't do derivative work unless they get permission from the community.
Or an owner of that particular NFT. I think that's probably the core, right? Like, also,
that's what Bored Ape did. So Bored Ape let each owner have the right to their own IP, which I think is good. And if the community wants to do that with PixelBeast, I think it's okay. I want to let the community decide on that. But I don't think that's the right place to start.
Well, it's also the difference between ownership and a license, right? Like in a certain case, like if you're like with Bored Apes, they were granting ownership to the owners of the NFT for that intellectual property. However, I think in this case, it's more of a license being granted to the owner of the NFT, where you can use your NFT for your own derivative works if that's what you want to do. But if you want to include the larger PixelBeast community within your derivative works and build on top of that IP, then that's more of a license that needs to happen within the community and from other NFT owners or from BeastCo, rather than owning the actual intellectual property in itself. Am I kind of getting that?
And I think this is the conversation that I think I want BeastCo to have, right? And you're probably right. I mean, probably derivative works that are non-commercial, I would assume should be like pretty open because it only markets. But like if it's commercial, does each owner have the right to have commercial derivative works without permission? I think the starting point is all of it houses under the umbrella, and the community can decide, hey, let's agree that if it's non-commercial, anybody can use any of the beasts. If it's commercial, you can use your own, but you can't use anybody else's. And if you want to use commercial that uses more than one beast, then you have to come to the community. If that's what the community wants, then that's what the community should vote on, I think.
Well, and as we're world building, it gives people space to be able to come up with their own NFT's character and their name, and who knows how that evolves as those NFTs become owned by secondary and tertiary owners. Does the name and likeness and personality of that NFT or that beast carry over to the next person, or at that point does the beast become someone new and have a new personality and a new story, which will be really interesting to see how that all plays out.
And I'm interested to see how the world building team, what happens with that as well, right? Is if you look at Bored Ape, just because it's such an easy example, is that there's no there's no underlying story arc to the Bored Ape universe because it's completely derivative and everybody's kind of running off on their own and they're not collaborating. So at least to start, PixelBeast and Beastopia will have a core back-end world-building team who's going to come up with a core storyline, core universal rules. If you look at Marvel comics back in the day, Marvel comics all followed a certain rule that allowed all Marvel heroes to be in the same universe in a somewhat cohesive manner. And the way they were able to do that was not to let anybody write a story, was to be controlling about who was able to write a story and what stories were accepted as part of the universe. And that's what allowed Marvel to build such a strong brand. So I'm curious if that's if we're able to do that in a community-run manner. Which is a little bit less open than I think what you were going for, which I appreciate too, because I do really love everything that's happening in the Bored Ape world.
No, but I very much appreciate that there needs to be cohesion and coordination when everybody runs off in separate directions. Although it has worked out very well for Bored Ape in that those derivative works that their members are creating have seemingly created a lot of value for their community. There is still just like a small number of community members who are actively participating in that. And while those people are probably increasing the value of their NFTs significantly more than others, there are also a large majority of people who have contributed not much. And as a result, still, reap the benefits of the value increasing from those other people. I think in the case where the project is managed centrally, but has contributors that are decentralized, it's actually including more people's say and having more more of the people who would otherwise be kind of on the sidelines will actually be able to participate, because not everybody has the ability to animate their NFT or create a storyline or add in like a concrete way, and perhaps voting is the best way for them to participate, or maybe just coming up with a name for their beast or whatever. But that happens a lot more fluidly when it's something that is centrally managed and not necessarily everybody running off in their own direction.
And one of the things I think I get a lot of suggestions from people. Hey, have you looked at this project? They're doing this, and it seems to be working well for them. But the number one rule I notice is that the only projects people talk about are the ones who do it first. So there's really not much benefit in copying what other people did. It's much more beneficial to come up with a unique strategy. Like the whole Web3 space is a big experiment. So the way to add value to the community at large is not to copy what another project has done, because we've seen how that plays out through that project. The best thing you can do for the community as a project is to do something that no other project has done, because then it allows other people to watch how that plays out. So a lot of times people are suggesting like, hey, have you seen this mechanic in this tool? I love hearing that because it allows me to design our own. But what I think you'll notice from PixelBeast is that we'll do things that are different from what you've seen in the community already, because I think that's what's most exciting about experimenting.
As a founder, one of the hardest things for me was all of the like unsolicited advice that came my way after launching my project, and so I can only imagine how that is to constantly have so much input coming at you. But about the things that nobody else has done that you're excited to be doing a new thing of, which is not entirely new to PixelBeast, but it is something that's relatively unique. I haven't seen it elsewhere to the same degree, is the levels of metadata that you've added for each PixelBeast, whether those are the different attributes and actually the levels, the dice that are part of the metadata. I know we've kind of gone off a little bit from the gaming, but to kind of circle back to that, how do you see those different attributes and level metadata playing into future projects with PixelBeasts? Or was that something that you just kind of created open-ended as a way of, providing that access, sort of like a loot project, so that people could build on top of it in the future?
Absolutely, the loot project. When I came up with them, I had no plans on them. I was hoping that I was coming up with attributes that I thought would inspire people to build on top of PixelBeast. I just happened to be one of the people inspired to build on top of those attributes myself. But when I initially designed them, I was not planning on doing a game at all.
One of the questions someone asked the other day in our Discord was, are those levels going to be able to change as you go throughout the future? And I thought that was a great question. I don't know that you have an answer for that yet, as it's still a little bit up in the air. But, how would that work? Do you see like there's actually a way, like, are those levels and metadata, is that stored on the blockchain, or is that something that's off chain and that has the potential to be able to be changed? Or
I think there are really fun mechanics you can do with metadata that changes over time. As an artist in the NFT space, I believe that if that is a part of the collection, that should be very upfront to make it fair to buyers and stuff. Of course, I think if the metadata changing is part of the NFT itself, I feel like that should be communicated upfront. I don't imagine myself adding that retroactively to the PixelBeast project. Not because I don't want to, but because I feel like that's not the right thing to do.
Makes sense. I mean, there's always other
layers. I'd love to play with, do an NFT project where the metadata changes over time, where you can control the metadata. There's so many fun experiments there. Picking and choosing our battles on where to experiment.
Well, and as we add more gaming features, it seems like we're going to have a way to track what's happening in those games and within the world, and that's not necessarily something that has to be on the blockchain, or at least at this point on Ethereum blockchain. It could make sense to do that on something with a lower transactional cost. But it's interesting and awesome that people are already contributing great questions like that. So it's cool to hear what you have to say.
From a game design perspective, I think you can either use, and not specific to PixelBeast, I think you can use an attribute in an NFT as the base stats if you wanted to, or and then you could store upgrades, level up, all that kind of stuff separately. And then when you go into a game, it updates that. Or you could update the metadata over time. But I think that makes it a harder. Actually, no, there's probably benefit to that as well. But you want to just be very, very clear on the mechanics around updating the level metadata and like how that's possible, so that it becomes becomes tradable value.
Yeah, it almost requires like a utility token in order to have like a separate way of tracking those
Yeah.
different
No.
attributes and transactions.
But yeah.
So,
But I do have an attribute that was very specific. The best friend attribute I put in there because I thought it would be a fun way to get people to meet each other.
what about Nemesis?
Same. I just thought how cool it'd be if you bought an NFT and like in the NFT hard coded was another NFT that you were either inspired to reach out to or buy. And I was like, that just sounds like a fun idea. I was like, well, yeah, why not? And then they each have a best friend and a nemesis. And it's a good reminder that like your nemesis also probably has a best friend, right? So there's a little philosophy in there as well.
There was actually like that was probably one of before the rarity tools came out and people were able to see like the levels of rarity. That was one of the first things that was driving people to go seek out like their next beast that they were going to buy was who's their best friend and who's their nemesis and can you go buy those and that was kind of the first scramble within the community of what are you going to pick up next and then came the rarity tools and in between the two different rarity tools that have been implemented so far, it looks like there's a little bit of variance between the two. That introduced a little bit of confusion in the community. Do you have any like clarity on the difference between the rarity rankings between those? Or I know you've said in the past that in the PixelBeast community all beasts are equal, but how do you know like technically what went on there, or does that not matter?
There's a ton of attributes, right? And like, there's a different like rarity is essentially an algorithm that's looking at which traits are rare and ranks them. So you can weigh different traits different ways. You can weigh numerical values as numbers or as individual, like a unique a variable, right? So there's different just ways to run it. So with the rarity tools and rarity sniper, we made sure they had the right data. We made sure they were employing a generally solid methodology, and like the results didn't look completely off to us. That being said, their algorithms are different. They're going to spit out different results. We don't have a specific comment on it. When I designed the rarity, I actually coded the rarity in myself. Well, I didn't code a specific rarity for traits. I kind of like I layered on a whole bunch of like rarity shufflers on top of each other, so I didn't know exactly what was going to come out rare and what wasn't, and I did that on purpose. So there's no official rarity ranking that was ever created. So the goal of these tools is to provide people who are interested with additional data.
And people are seeking out more rare ones. I mean, I think at first I was drawn to the different attributes, wanting to collect, the pink goggles and the gold chains, particularly, are some of my favorites. And there are little groups of people who collect different ones. I know, like the steampunk goggles are another popular favorite. But
I like my crowns.
Yeah, the crowns
like
too.
His crowns too.
When the rarities came out, and then all of a sudden it became apparent that actually the clean beasts with no attributes were some of the more rare ones. Suddenly they jumped in value, and you saw a lot of people rushing to try to pick those ones up too. So that was really cool. I didn't anticipate
that was surprising me. I mean, with punks too, with a lot of collections, the clean ones with no attributes are always pretty rare.
Yeah, that was new to me. I had no idea. Yeah. So it was cool to see, and now I've got my eye on them, and I'm constantly in the like OpenSea activity tracking who's trading what and what they're going for. Do you see BeastCo trying to pick up any of the NFTs in order to like retain them for projects or for like intellectual property reasons for building out world building and stuff? Is that something? I know sometimes, like with NFT projects, if there's rumors of the project buying back some of their NFTs or whatever, and that's generally, I would say that it can help, but it also could be a problem. But I think as long as it's done transparently, there should be nothing wrong with that. Is that something that you think might end up happening, or?
Yeah. Yes, there is. There's a community wallet, and I haven't announced it because I've looked at other projects and I've noticed that the second you say there's a community wallet, everyone just jumps on and says, go buy some cats. And that's not what this project is about. But it'll be used thoughtfully, including, and it already is holding on to a handful of PixelBeasts, and we'll continue picking up PixelBeasts for a little while to amass a chest for accelerators, giveaways, that kind of stuff.
And one of the other things is there's not actually a full 10,000 Pixel Beasts that have actually been minted yet. We're still only around 9,500 or something around there.
No, there should be. I think it's at like last I saw it was at like 9890, and so mechanically we had a giveaway function. This is pretty standard, and we set aside some for giveaways that we did for promotion, and then there's probably about 100. Or I can give specific numbers in an update, but there's probably a good chunk remaining as giveaways that we didn't use. I gave myself a buffer because we're just running so fast. I was like, I don't know how many we're going to need. Let's put a buffer. All that's going to go straight into the community wallet. And we'll use it either for the accelerator or giveaways and whatnot.
Yeah, awesome. Because I think a lot of projects say, well, it's a 10,000 project, but then on OpenSea you see there's slightly less than 10,000. I think
there's 10,000 total. They'll all be on there was a couple like late giveaways that we were still doing last week. So we were waiting on all that to complete before we put all the giveaways in the community wallet.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. Is there anything else that you want to mention today that we haven't covered or that you're excited about?
No, I mean, I think the investment DAO, I think the accelerator is pretty exciting. We didn't talk too much about that, but I have a couple of mentors who are excited to support startups. And I think we have a couple of founders who've already reached out saying if we did any sort of accelerator, they want in. So yeah, I think accelerator, DAO, Beast Go, we're doing some fun stuff.
Well, I want to encourage anybody who is watching to pick up a PixelBeast NFT. Also join us in Discord. We have a lot of active discussions going on. The verified Discord channels are a source of so much great information, really valuable learning, and useful tools and information that can help you get started with Web3. Yohei, it's been great to have you here today. Thank you so much for talking with me. I look forward to seeing what we can build together in Beastopia.
Let's fucking build.